Hi, I'm Betsy Bennett. I'm a partner with the Florida CFO Group. You have a panel of three of us today to talk about the subject of managing the effects of inflation on small and medium-sized business operations. With me today is Kelly Crandall, who is with Next Level Strategies, which is powered by Sales Acceleration, and then my partner, Joanne Dempster. Kelly, do you want to start with some insights that you were sharing with us earlier?
Sure. So when we're thinking about how inflation is going to affect the business, I always look at things from the sales perspective. So we're talking about sending out estimates and quotes. It's always been a good practice just to make sure that we have firm deadlines on those documents. So I've had clients that in the past might have allowed a quote to, be good for 30 days. That was pretty standard. And now we're seeing a real movement to as early as 7 days in some cases, just depending on the supply chain and how quickly prices are, moving, right? So just making sure that that's happening. And also really looking at your deposit structure, because we're also finding some clients are needing to purchase materials now, even for jobs that could be as far out as 12 or 18 months, as long as they have capability to store materials. We're finding that that's also one way to hedge against inflation and really lock in prices today. And then, of course, you can't leave out the compensation plans when you're talking about paying salespeople. So just really looking at how inflation might impact your overall margins and making sure that you've established a really good estimating model that's bringing in those current prices all the time and having margin-driven plans. So as we have to reduce margins as a company, then also making sure your salespeople are, sort of the commissions are fluctuating appropriately with the estimating models. So those are some of the quick hit things that I would suggest are being looked at.
And along the lines, when you're talking about the contracts and shortening the acceptance cycle, another thing that I'm finding is that sometimes you're bidding a contract that's not going to start in 12 months or so, particularly if it's labor-based, not material-based, because you can solve that problem. But if it's labor-based, you've really got to think of what your cost of labor is going to be 12 months from now as compared to today. The last 3, 4, maybe 5 years, very standard merit raises have been 2.5%, 3%. Right now, I'm seeing, estimates in the range of 5 to 7%. So it's almost doubling what you have to start compounding in to a forward-looking bid.
And I think companies too, on the HR side of the house, are having to look at their entire menu of options that they're allowing their staff. The positives associated with work at home. Some of the other unlimited vacation, even perhaps some of those different things. But then they have to build that into the staffing and availability models. I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of, at least I know for sure in where I live, is the effect on the restaurants of the rising cost of wages. And we're seeing, smaller to medium-sized, restaurant owners very much struggling to keep the staff that they need to run the restaurant, changing their hours, trying to adapt to not only the rising cost of the wages, but also the rising cost of the food and the supply chain shortages on the food side.
That brings another effect that, for consumer facing businesses, they are evaluating their pricing structure, their menu prices, so to speak. And, originally when the supply chain and the labor issues started, there were some short-term price adjustments made. But I think the small and medium-sized businesses really need to think about optimally how many price changes should they have a year, and then try and get that forward look so that they're not, raising prices every 2 months or every month and getting disgruntled consumers as a result. Because there is an optimal, I don't know what the number is, but I know once a month isn't the right answer for how many price changes you should make in a year if it's a standard set menu that a consumer is used to. So just really think about how many times you think your particular consumer can sustain a price adjustment, and then do some forward-looking work to try and get that as accurate as possible.
Sure. And one of the biggest challenges I see with just pricing in general, price increases, your price is too high. If we're getting those kind of objections from our clients, and our salespeople are coming back and saying, we lost it over price, then the reality is we really didn't differentiate ourselves. So if clients don't see us as any different from somebody else that's providing the same product or service, they will push you on price. So you have to really understand what your differentiators are and look at your value proposition. And so we have to have a really strong value proposition for what it is that we're doing. Like what is it that we have that makes us different and unique, that we can sell to, so that price then doesn't become the primary driver of the conversation at all. So we have to, make sure that we're substantiating our product, that we're providing value. They trust us. They need the product. They need it now. If all those things are in place and we're selling on value, then we shouldn't have as much trouble as some are experiencing, because their salespeople don't know how to sell any other way.
Yeah.
And I think too, the effect on some of the different companies, like the food, delivery companies that have, they're providing the actual cooked food, how to come up with a subscription service with an established price and also still be able to keep the quality of the food as it needs to be in order to, maintain their business model the way that they had originally hoped.
Right. And a lot of times it's more than just about the food, right? So what is it that this food is doing for you? How is it making you feel, right? What is the overall experience in eating this way? Like, what is it? Is it going to make you healthier? Is it going to give you back time in your schedule? Are you going to be able to spend more time with your family, right? So that, again, when you're selling to some of those qualities that are important to the client, the actual price of the food isn't what we're buying at all. There's more emotion into what is it that we're truly buying, right? We're buying health, we're buying time, we're buying those things that, again, you can't put a price on, right? So the cost of the meal is less important to me than, am I getting what I want from this vendor?
Yeah. It's interesting, Kelly, because my first CFO job after I left public accounting, we were really good at selling value. And I could always tell a salesperson that wasn't going to stick because they were always going to price.
Yeah.
And, as a CFO, I got a very interesting introduction into doing it right and basically having a little bit to learn.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what some people don't realize is that if you're like, well, listen, we are just a commodity and it is price. I would still argue that the salesperson and the sales process that you take the client through could in and of itself be enough of a differentiator for me to want to go with you versus somebody else. And I'm willing to pay a little bit more just because I trust you and I know you're going to help me fulfill whatever it is that I need. So, even in the worst scenarios, you can still differentiate yourself in the process.
Yep. Understood. And, the other thing I was thinking about today as I was reading today's news is, how, we've got oil prices now just skyrocketing. We've got other impacts of the war. We've got the impacts of China shutting down Shenzhen, which is a major, shipping and technology area over in China. And so that's going to continue to have disruptors. So again, I guess, I'm going to be a broken record here. As you're thinking about how you need to change your business operations, understand that there's a lot more volatility right now than we've experienced for a long time in this country, and make sure you're doing some scenario planning as far as if you're trying to reset prices, or if it's a contract like Kelly was saying, shorten your time frame for acceptance so that your risk is diminished.
And I think that the most interesting thing is, we've had problems with port closures and things like that before in the past, but there's so many unknown variables right now.
Yeah.
The destination where your product comes in, the variables of the supply chain and availability, and then the price of food, the costs of the fuel, et cetera. It's really becoming very, very difficult to predict.
And what's so important with all of these changes and all of the unpredictability is the communication. And so thinking again from the customer's perspective, right? They'll be willing and accepting of these delays and what is uncontrollable, as long as they're being told what's happening and as long as they're being updated through the process, right? So the worst thing you can do is think you've waited 3 months and you're going to have your installation of whatever it is, and then you find out it's not happening. So we have to just be thinking about, from a business perspective, making sure your teams are really, really ahead of that communication. And as soon as they know there's going to be additional delays, that we're letting those clients know, so that we keep that client satisfaction at a high level.
So at turbulent times, we are trying to give you the best advice possible to navigate this new old thing called inflation, and hopefully some of our pointers today have been of value to you. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.